Hey there, guys. I am Bill. And oh my god, I'm doing an intro. Hello, everyone. It is Football Talks. It is the second round of the postseason. And with me is my friend.
It's me, Josh Skyward Shield. What's going on? The divisional playoff round is in the books. I think we're gonna move on. Before we get to any games, though, there was some big news. Normally we could talk about head coaching jobs, but who cares? The only thing you need to know, thank God Josh McDaniels is not going to San Francisco. He is confirmed today. No thank you, I'm not going to that job. I'm going to stay with the Patriots, because, Bill, you know what that makes me think? If the Patriots win and Brady and Belichick retire at the same time, I guarantee you McDaniels is going to be the head coach.
I would definitely agree with that assessment. I feel like Bill Belichick is sort of almost like grooming him to be head coach after him.
Yeah, and then not only do you pass on the torch in terms of the coaching jobs, but you also pass on the torch in terms of the QB, because then that means Jimmy Garoppolo can take the helm. And from the sample we got from him in the beginning of the year, it looks very promising with that offense. It fits him. Once again, the Patriots so far look like they made a good drafting choice in terms of QB. But aside from that, there are two teams that are going to be moving. One for sure this year and one probably next year. It's going to be the Chargers going to LA and switching their logo every day, it seems, because one minute it was the L, and the LA had a white bolt, then it turned yellow, and then it just turned to just Chargers. Because everybody's making fun of their logo, they can't take it, and also San Diego fans are pissed off, and rightfully so. What I saw was fans actually going to the front of the stadium at the steps and just throwing their jersey there. They didn't burn it, they just left it there. Because I think it's a way of them saying we are leaving our memories in that stadium. And I think...
mean,
What, Bill?
really, as with any fan base that is rejected by ownership, that team's been there for a long time. That team, they had some good teams there, and I just feel like they could have worked something out eventually, but it's like you and we've all put out there. It's really ownership being lazy and trying to make a quick buck off of the taxpayers.
Yeah, they don't want to pay for themselves, which is exactly why I'm going to be hammering the Raiders when we get to them. But I want to finish the Chargers, so they are going to move to a stadium. They're not going to share the stadium with the Rams yet. That's not until it's complete 2 years from now. They're going to a stadium. This feels like an arena football stadium. 30,000 seats. That, I feel like even that, the stadium will not be filled. Because unless this team comes out with a bang, starts out 5-0, I don't see this stadium filling up anytime soon. Sure, some celebrities will go, but what?
It was just, I'm be brutally honest. Los Angeles really probably only needed one football team. They don't need two, and they've got two now, and they don't really care about one of them.
Yeah. Look, like they're getting first when they got the Rams, like, oh yay, we got a football team, that's great. Now it's like we have two football teams, send them back.
Exactly. You got the Rams there. Having two teams in Los Angeles, what does that do? They had two teams in Los Angeles in prior years, both the Rams and the Raiders back in the early 90s, and they both moved because the split loyalty really doesn't do anything. It's not like baseball, where there's the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim and the Dodgers. They've been there for a long time. Or, or in the NBA, like the Lakers and the Clippers. The Clippers were an afterthought for 30 years.
And now they are the main.
The Lakers.
And now it's the other way around. The Clippers are the contender, and the Lakers are the pretender.
And but overall, the fan fan base in Los Angeles is majority Lakers based,
Oh yeah.
and then there's the oddball Clippers fans.
Yep, and yet so far it's the oddballs that are having the better days today. But to
Oh
be
yeah,
fair, the
definitely.
Lakers have had their glory for so long. It's not surprising that they're going to hit a few years of a rough patch, and I think they're aware of that.
And but the thing is that all those teams that we just mentioned have been there for a while.
And they've won
The
too.
two, yeah, the two team philosophy, they've been there for a while. These two teams are terrible, and they haven't been there for a
It's like
while.
they think New York's is successful. Baseball, it's not. Well, I mean, it kind of was at the 80s and 90s, but that
I
was it.
mean, but New York City is the second biggest city on the planet. I mean,
And
you
yet
know,
it's probably the most divided, which is why maybe you could see the two-team system working. New Yorkers hate everybody, including themselves.
I mean, but Los Angeles is the media capital of the world. But does that mean that it's going to translate on the field and in revenue? I doubt it.
Unless you make the playoffs, you're not getting anybody over there. Oh, they'll come when you make the playoffs and you win a playoff game. But, you have to bandwagon affect them, which that's not hard for the city of LA. I mean, do you see how many of them would rather the Warriors moved if we're talking basketball? They would give up the Clippers for the Warriors any day.
I mean,
No, but
the
what, Bill?
the but if we're going to be brutally honest, this San Diego move to Los Angeles isn't. To be fair, they're not going to be cared about in Los Angeles, just like how they weren't cared about in San Diego in that old stadium that the ownership should have built a new stadium with.
Yep,
Now,
he
put
shouldn't have
your
let the
own
whole city.
money.
Because here's the thing, that voting thing was meant to have the whole city vote. You had the fans vote yes, of course they would. But you're asking the whole city, it's like, oh, this nobody football team wants me to support them. Now, if you did this in another place, like here's a reason how it could and couldn't work. Because remember, Bill, in baseball, this happened not too long ago with the Texas Rangers in Dallas. But as we know, the Texas Rangers are always a playoff-bound team. And of course, they made a couple runs to the World Series. And now I don't want to speak about how those ended, but they've done it before, and they always have that potential to make that kind of run. And that is why fans, even baseball fans, picked yes. Because they knew that this team can do it. Because you always hear headlines, oh look, once again, the Rangers have won the division and are going to the playoffs.
Right.
If you heard that about the Chargers every year or so, you would probably have put yes. It's like, oh, this is a successful team. It might bring better business, sure. If you have a good team, people will vote yes most of the time. But if it's a bad team, they don't give a shit about you. Because, like, I don't want to support this hoax of a team. It's not good. Bring me a better team and then we'll talk.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, I can see this team making a run sooner or later, but that has a lot of factors. Every year, this team loses all of its players, and sure, it's getting better on the roster, but they just whittle down. And then, of course, Phillip Rivers' age. Sooner or later, he's going to fall off that cliff, and then what? And what are you going to do then? It's going to be a problem, Bill.
Exactly.
So the timetable was low. I honestly would have waited until Phillip Rivers was done with his career and then maybe move, because then it's an entirely new slate. But I mean, here's the other thing. Normally, even a coach would pretty much tell his players, "Hey, act like you're in support of everything that the team does." But even the players are questioning this move. It's like it hurts, man. It hurts our team. It hurts hurts the players, and it also hurts their families. But it also hurts the fans, most importantly. And it's like they have a right to be upset about this, because this is something not even the players decided on. They just did it. In the end, it's just a fucking business to them. Like, the players, despite them, you would think, they're people, they should have a say. No. And I won't say they're property, But they are just part of the merchandise. They are just part of this. They are part of the product at the end of the day.
And here's the other thing. You're losing a portion of people from Southern California in your viewing audience that are never going to support you ever again.
Yeah.
I mean, San Diego's not that far from Los Angeles. You're going to lose a portion of Southern California in your viewing audience, and they're going to go away.
Yep. I mean, San Francisco built their stadium outside of San Fran, but, they're still called the San Francisco 49ers. If you built it outside of the city, you still would be the San Diego Chargers. But, yeah, if they don't want to do that, so be it. Now, next is the Raiders side of things. Theirs is a little more complicated because it hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen soon. They've already filed the papers. We'll probably hear about if it happens sooner or later. The only thing I know is that apparently, of course, I'm not surprised about this. I guess I was right. Jerry Jones definitely wants them to move. He thinks it'll be a smart move for all of football. Which, again, we have the same case of fans not wanting to move it. Here's the thing. This is why this would work, unlike them, because now you're moving a winning team over there. And Las Vegas may not care right now, and they probably still don't care, but as soon as they go there and find, oh, look, the Las Vegas Raiders are going to the playoffs, then they come. You can win,
Right.
or you can win a city by a simple bandwagon effect. Unlike with other cases of bandwagonism that we're going to get to later in the podcast, this one's not bad, because as a new team in town, you have to establish your authority, and what better way to do that is to get you into playoffs, and then you start bringing a buzz. Oh, this team could possibly go to the Super Bowl. I don't know. Let's go watch and find out. That's the easiest way for a team to shrill up attention. Winning games and going to the postseason.
Draw a parallel to what the Raiders are going to be by teams that move to a technical smaller market than Las Vegas, but they still move from Seattle to Oklahoma City. And I'm saying the Oklahoma City Thunder. If you really look at that, it's a very similar parallel because...
And that's why Seattle hates them more. Because this would have been their run, right?
Yep, exactly. The Oklahoma City Thunder established themselves with a great team with Durant and Westbrook, and now they're a part of Oklahoma City. You can't envision them anywhere else. Whereas, if you think Oakland Raiders, if they start winning playoff games, you'll immediately recognize them as the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah. And that's going to be a problem. And that's why if they do that, I hate saying this. As much as I love Derek Carr as a quarterback, I really don't want them to win a Super Bowl because I feel like that wasn't Las Vegas's Super Bowl to win, that was Oakland's. Now, unless they win one this year because that's the goal, they want to win one more before they move, which I hope that happens at the very least, which I don't see because, Bill, I'm going to tell you right now, next year's Super Bowl team for the AFC is not going to be the Patriots. I'm going to go with the Steelers because the Steelers, for as good as they're going right now, they are still not 100%. They are still missing Latavius Bryant. I think that's his name. He was also a Bryant. That's all I remember. His last name, Bryant, and he was supposed to be the number 2 to Antonio Brown and be that very fast, Will Fuller-like player. Oh, Martavius Bryant. Thank you, Bill. Thank you. I'm thinking of Latavius Murray. That's why I mixed them up. With those two along with Le'Veon Bell and Big Ben, that offense looks unstoppable, and the defense is formidable enough. I'm not saying it's good, but it's not the worst one in the world. Because if you want the worst ones out there are plenty out there. But yeah, that's what I would do, and maybe the Raiders could stop them, maybe not. But it's going to be weird. It's going to be complicated, but yeah. Anyway, so that's what I'm afraid of, Bill, when the Raiders do move, which I really don't want them to, but it feels like it's going to happen. Which the Chargers and the Rams moves were bad, this one's probably the only one that makes sense because this is a team that's actually winning. But that's the worst thing. That's what will make these Raiders fans hate Las Vegas even more, because they took their winning team away, and they know it's coming. Unlike with the Seattle Supersonics, they didn't think they would be this good in a few years. They was like, oh, maybe they'll be a tolerable team. They can win enough games so you could go see some. But, you know, you won't see them in the postseason most of the time. But now the Raiders fans like, okay, we can be a playoff team any year now. We can do it. And now they're going to go. I think that's going to be a worser feeling for the Raiders fans. But anyway, any last thoughts on these two teams moving, Bill?
To be fair, I expected the Oakland one. I didn't think the San Diego one was gonna happen, but you know, I mean, it doesn't surprise me from the NFL perspective because they're idiots and two teams in LA is really good. You know,
Two bad teams.
You know, that's a typical stupid NFL response. Hey, having two teams in LA is a really good idea. No, it's not a good idea. And eventually, one of those teams is going to move out of LA. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I wonder which one's going to go, though. I can't think of it.
The Rams.
I'm going to go with the Chargers.
Likely.
No, wait, you're right. The Rams. The Chargers are the more likely team to get better.
The Rams left once. It stands to reason that they could leave a second time.
Yep, but I was gonna say oh well, but yeah, I mean, I was on the other side of the spectrum, Bill. I thought the Chargers would move for sure, and the Raiders would stay. Especially when I heard that the city of Oakland was fine with paying for all the expenses for a new stadium. And that's what the problem is. I think I mentioned that if they still move, this shows how they want to make that splash above actually satisfying their fan base. Because like I said, if Oakland stays and they become this good, all of a sudden you could have one of the most thriving sports cities in America in Oakland, because you have the Warriors in basketball and then the Raiders in baseball. All of a sudden you're way better than what San Francisco could ever offer you, and then then there you go. Not only have that near city rivalry, but you also could be one of the best cities in all of the state in terms of what quality sports you have. But now you're gonna send that to Las Vegas because I want to go to where the city that never sleeps because it's a splashy move and it looks crafty and cool. No. You want to piss off the fan base? Go ahead, I guess. That's what you want, you know. And I don't know how the Raiders stadium is going to be next season, because it's like, you know, it's an impending doom. Are they still going to want to show up to see their team, or are they just not going to come at all? If they don't come, then I think it further justifies their reasoning to move. That's the only weird part that makes it feel like it's a lose-lose no matter what you do.
I think it'll be a black hole, but it'll be a black hole in a different way. That there's going to be a lot of empty seats.
Oh, yeah.
And no one there.
Yep, that's going to be a problem. But yeah, anyway, let's move on to the games. Let's start in Foxborough, because for the first half, the Texans on defense looked superb. And this is where I've been saying, Bill, if only J.J. Watt were here, I think this defense could reach historic levels, because I feel like if you could just do the three-man pass rush, this would be the most powerful you'll ever see in all of NFL for years to come. But the lack of Watt, because normally this is what I thought the Patriots would do. They always take away your best thing, and I thought they were going to do it again. What they took away the first time they played each other was the defense. They made the defense a non-factor with the third-string quarterback. That wasn't the case this time, because the defense was almost as healthy as you could get, almost. They still had trouble at safety, but this is where they did. They picked on the Texans' secondary, more specifically their unexperienced players. They picked on Corey Moore, on Andre Hal, and on all the weak corners and safeties that they had, because the starters like Quinton Demps and Kevin Johnson are gone. And that's why they went for that. And that's why I remember there was a point where I think for 3 straight throws, Tom Brady threw at Corey Moore's vicinity. And he was so frustrated because he should know, yes, I am the weakest link in this team, and that's why he's going for me. Brady's always got to pick on the weakest link of your team. That's how he plays, and that's how he's always been. If it's if he can't get the ball to say to Edelman because someone like Richard Sherman's covering him, okay, I'm going to go to your weakest secondary player at all times. So that basically means Danny Amendola will probably catch more balls, or Chris Hogan will catch more balls because he is going to have the weakest player on his side. So it's like, go ahead, cover my best guy. I'm going to have somebody else step up and beat you. That's how he is.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought the secondary was kind of a problem. I expressed some hints about that, but the fact that we didn't have our Kevin Johnson here is a problem. And that's because last season, when Kevin Johnson was a rookie, Tom Brady threw at him a lot. But Kevin Johnson improved so much in the second year until he broke his foot again, and that's becoming a concern. But yeah, it's not surprising. But on defense, I think the Texans' defense gave it their all. But it's, like with other games, I think like last week, we had I talked about the Giants and Lions defense. They did well at the beginning, but unless your offense can do something about it, there's only so many times they can hold them back because they're going to be on the field a lot more because the offense seems to exit after one first down or even no first down gained.
Exactly, and that was the major issue in this game is the Houston Texans offense. I think that's the worst offense I've ever seen.
Bill, this is my frustration on full form. Osweiler is a total bust.
I mean, overall, that was one of the worst offensive performances I think I've seen in the last 5 years. And I mean, I've seen some bad offense, during one of the years with the Lions, they had negative 7 yards rushing. But this was on another level bad because Savage being out was a detriment to the Houston Texans. They had a better shot at winning that game against New England with Tom Savage at quarterback than Brock Osweiler.
Yep. I mean, when we get to the Cowboys, Bill, you know who I'm going to bring up, so I might just bring him up at the end of this one. You know who I'm talking about. A certain Cowboys definitely going to get cut this year. Because there are no teams that would trade for him. But, we'll get to that later. Anyway, finish what you're saying about Osweiler.
Brock Osweiler is the most overrated quarterback. And the issue for him is I think he's too tall for the position. And
that's a crazy thing to say.
His mechanics, he is mechanically unsound at quarterback, and sometimes he's throwing footballs into people's faces. That shouldn't be an issue at his height, and yet he's still throwing the ball downwards at people.
He'd probably be a better basketball player if you ask me. He should have stuck to that instead.
I think he's just too tall for the position. I think there's a certain, Goldilocks zone for quarterbacks. If you're, to be fair, you can never be too short to play that position, but I would say 6'2" to 6'6" is about the normal average. Anything outside that area, you start running into these sort of issues. If you think of big, lanky quarterbacks like him, none of them have been successful.
Yeah. But if you're too short, you better be a mobile quarterback or you're not going to last that long.
Drew Brees.
I would just say Russell Wilson. He's shorter than most quarterbacks. Yep. But he's just fine because he's a very mobile one and he's not stupid. He's very smart. That's why he couldn't save that team against the Falcons though, but yeah.
Right.
But we'll talk about that later, but yeah. I am just going to put it out there now because as I heard the other day, the Broncos do not want to trade for Romo. They would just, if they wanted him that badly, they'd rather they'd go for him during if he's cut. And I don't think that's what Jerry Jones wants to do. He wants to get some value out of it. He wants to trade him, which I don't think it's going to happen because the thing is, Romo will choose which teams he wants to trade with. But the only one he would have chosen was the Broncos, but the Broncos don't want anything out of that. There's nothing they would give up, no picks, no players for that. And I can't blame them. I mean, to be honest, I think they're fine with Trevor Siemian for now, because I think the reasons why they were bad was not really per se a lack of bad QB play. I would say it was more the lack of a run game and then a bit of undisciplined defense. Which, by the way, Bill, sorry about Teryl Austin not getting a job, because that means now Wade Phillips is probably going to go to the Rams.
I mean,
yeah, I wish he was the Chargers head coach. Didn't happen.
You know, I'm okay with it. You know, if we're done get rid of everyone, you know, after this next coming up year, you know, might as well get rid of everyone, give everyone one last chance, right?
Yeah, I would have wanted Wade Phillips to make that defensive line play better and more physical. And I don't know about discipline because that seems to be in question now. But yeah. Anyway, the hope is for me, Bill, is that maybe, I don't think it'll happen that easily because it's a matter of money, but maybe Houston can try and go for Romo for a 1-year contract. See what he's got.
I mean, it's possible.
And
it's
really,
very possible.
if things go right, and by that I mean the offensive line gets healthy, you get because remember they've been playing all year without their main center, Nick Martin. He got injured during the preseason and he could never play again for the rest of the year. So he'll come back, and then you could probably draft a right tackle or a right guard in this coming draft, because that's their biggest concern for me. The right tackle. Forget QB, because I don't think there's a QB they could get with that pick, because I believe they are pick number 28. I think it's 26, 27, or 28, around there. But so there's not really a quarterback you can get there. You can go for a right tackle. That'll be a good one. That's all I ask for from in this draft. Work on that offensive line, the right side, and there you go. You should be good. But I would like, if they can get Romo too, because if there's any quarterback who could get into this system quickly and make good use of it, because it has a good run game that it can depend on, and you have great receivers in DeAndre Hopkins. I can't even say Will Fuller now, because the one thing, there is a play where Osweiler actually made a good throw. You could not have asked this to do for it to be any better. You could have asked Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady to make this throw. They would have done it easily too. But that was a good throw, and Will Fuller dropped it, and he was in the end zone already. Easy touchdown, but he had to let go. His biggest flaw from his draft, I don't know if you remember his drafting report or his scouting report, but the biggest and the most bolded flaw was that this kid will drop big throws, big play throws, or passes. And he did it when it mattered most. And he knows that. If that was caught, we would have been at, let's see, it would have been 34. Wait, or it wouldn't be 34 at that time, but at the very least, that could have rejuvenated the offense and and not only the offense but the defense. That would have given a spark to maybe try and upset the Patriots. I don't think they would have won, but I feel like that was the easiest touchdown you could have ever made for Osweiler. That was his best throw all game by far, and yet it couldn't be capitalized. Hopkins would have caught that most likely, but not Fuller. And I'm not saying Fuller's a bust. I don't say that, but man, you could not have asked for any other time for that flaw to appear. That was the worst timing in that whole game, and I could not stand it. But yeah. Anyway, I don't know, Bill. Do you think there's a chance Romo could make it to Houston? Houston would have to make a move for him, though. What do you think?
I think he has two teams that he's either go to, and it's going to be the Denver Broncos or the Houston Texans. And, I mean, really, if you think about it, those two teams have the most issue at quarterback
There's
and
another, but I
they're
don't know
both
about them.
playoff.
You know what I'm talking about?
Playoff. And who is that?
The Jets. They have good
I would.
players, but I don't trust Forte. Like Marshall and Eric Decker are a good wide receiver duo, but it's that rest of the team I don't know. I don't trust the defense anymore, Bill. Like
I'll
that's
put it
what,
this way.
what
I think he'll look at it like this: is that he wants to play for a team that made the playoffs last year, and of the teams in the playoffs, there's only two teams that really need quarterbacks, and that is, Denver and Houston. And I'm putting Houston on there because, of the inconsistency.
Here's what
of
I
Brock
would think.
Osweiler.
The perfect situation. Take a 1-year contract, see how you do, because you never know. If you get hurt, that's a big problem. I mean, maybe they could make a deal, like a multi-year deal, but the condition is if he gets injured, he doesn't make some of that money for the rest of the year. Or for however many games he misses, right?
Right.
And then when you get the guaranteed money out of the way for Osweiler, cut him. You pay Hopkins, and you pay Hopkins with that money, and you keep him locked up. You should be able to make a run for a Super Bowl within those 2-3 years.
Once you paid the guarantee, that still counts on your cap, though.
That's what I'm saying. Well, remember, this next year is the last of the cap on Osweiler. $16 million. I think it's $16 million. That's all you got to pay left on him that's guaranteed. Everything else, if you cut him before that, like that March deadline, I think it's March or April, I forget what day. If you cut,
I think it's March 1st.
Yeah, as long as you cut him before March 1st, you're good. Then you don't have to be like the Browns, who they had to pay Johnny Manziel for his 3rd year in this past year. Maybe that's why they went 1-15. Oh well.
Well, they're not exactly the smartest team.
True, that's true. So yeah, as long as they do that, I think it can work out. I think maybe the team can understand, especially if Romo shows promise, which I think he can, because if he could make. We saw him in that last drive, because that is probably his last drive as a Dallas Cowboy for sure.
Oh, it definitely is.
And yet, it was the best drive, one of the best drives I have seen from the Cowboys all year. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, there were some great drives, like on that Pittsburgh-Dallas game, but that drive against the Eagles, it had been so long since he played, and yet he made a defense, I would say a viable enough defense, makes them look like a joke. He makes this offense look unstoppable and gets an easy touchdown, and that team was just so happy. I felt like if they stuck with him for the rest of the game, they would have dropped 50 on them. Because that team looked like, I want to play for Romo, I miss this guy, and all that. But yeah, it was his team, and Dak Prescott stole it from him, but I can't get mad entirely for that. But yeah. That's the only hope, because I cannot see Osweiler as the starter. And here's the other thing. Next year's schedule for the Texans is by far the most brutal. There is no hell in way. I'm going to say this right now. There is no hell in way that I can only think the Titans could have the best chance at this schedule. Because, Bill, you know that the Texans have to play the NFC West. And guess who's on that list? The Cardinals, who I think are due for a resurgent season, comeback team. If there's a comeback team of the year, I think the Cardinals will do it, because I think everything went wrong for the Cardinals this season, and I can believe they can make the wild card or take the division. But okay, look, the road schedule is frightening to me, Bill, because you got to play, of course, your division rivals, but then you got to go to Baltimore, you got to go to Cincy, and Cincy has a deep grudge against you right now. You have the Rams, which are no problem. Then you got to go to these two places. You got to go to the Clink, and then you got to go once again to New England. You got to go to Foxborough, and yeah, have fun with that. And without a Tony Romo type of quarterback, I can't see them do it. Maybe with Watt, maybe I could talk myself into like, man, this defense could be so good they could do it. But until that time has been proven, no, I am not going to give the Texans the benefit of the doubt. At home, you got to play Pittsburgh and Arizona and KC. Have fun with that. That's why I think this schedule is so ugly. It is ugly. Sure, you got freebies like San Francisco and LA, but I do not like this schedule one bit, Bill. It's going to fuck them up. I can maybe see the Titans pull away with this division because the Colts, until their defense gets good or they protect Andrew Luck, they don't deserve any playoff hope. And Jacksonville, oh, they're a joke now at this point. But yeah. So that's why I think they have to make a move for Romo, because they have no reason to get in the playoffs without someone like him. Because Osweiler looks like he's due to fuck up against these good teams at any given minute. But yeah. Anyway, Bill, I think on that note, I think we should move on to the other playoff game, because this was not the only Texas team to lose in the playoffs this year. But fun fact,
Yep.
the Texans were the only Texas team to win a playoff game this year, because the Cowboys. Here's the thing, Bill. I think you were right. Like last year, I think you said it, that we should abolish the bye week and have 8 teams. I mean, that'd be a lot more garbage, but hey, because the only teams I can see consistently making good use of the bye is the Patriots.
Right.
They're the only team that makes a real good use out of the bye, because the Cowboys look like they were still sleeping at the wheel on defense. Just to clarify, give a little disclaimer or note. I am not faulting this Cowboy offense one bit. I think they did what they needed to do on offense. Sure, they had some things go against them, especially Butler and that unsportsmanlike conduct call, which I've never heard of that call before, but you know what? I will probably give the refs the benefit of the doubt, because if it were wrong, I would think even Dean Blandino would have said, hey, this is not right. Because I remember he also said at the same time 2 years ago, Bill, that flag picked up in the Detroit Lions playoff game 2 years ago. That was a questionable decision, because there was a defensive holding there that should have been called. So yeah. I want to give Blandino the benefit of the doubt that he knows what he was talking about for this situation. But yeah, I do not fault the offense one bit. What did I say, Bill? What did I say? If the Cowboys were to lose any game for any reason, why would they lose?
They were going to lose because of their corners and their defense in general, but their corners were the weak link of the team.
Yep. And guess what? I called this on the first game of the year. I said, and this is why I said Dallas should have drafted Jalen Ramsey. I'm going to enjoy saying that for the rest of the offseason, sure. I'm not saying Elliott was he was wrong, he's a bust. No, not at all. He's a good player. He's Rookie of the Year by far. But this definitely denies him the MVP candidacy. I hope to God it doesn't go to Rodgers. I think Matt Ryan was more deserving, but anyway.
To be fair, it's Matt Ryan.
It should be, but you never know. They could give it to Rodgers. He says, "Oh, I love Aaron Rodgers. He's the GOAT, even though he's won one Super Bowl. He is better than Tom Brady, than Joe Montana, than Peyton Manning, better than all of those quarterbacks combined, because he said, run the table."
Started the season 4-6 and was terrible in those 10 games, whereas Matt Ryan was consistently great the entire year. So
and played great without his wide receiver Julio Jones. But anyway, that's beside the point. So yeah, I said since the beginning of the season they needed a cornerback like Jalen Ramsey, because you know why? Aaron Rodgers made these corners look like jokes. And here's how bad it got. There were, if you're going to say, oh, the refs helped the Packers win. Oh, yeah, sure. How about those 2 or 3 defensive holding calls that never got called? Like that one where Orlando Skadrick was pulled on, I think, Devontae Adams' jersey, and it wasn't called. And you could see the armor from his body, from the equipment on him, outside of the jersey. And he's like, hey, look at this. Look at this. He was pulling on my jersey. Why aren't you throwing a flag? And they didn't throw it. Maybe they were helping the Cowboys. I don't know. But you know what I do know? I would have given him the benefit of the doubt and threw that flag. Because look, That is completely obvious because you pretty much left evidence that you did do that. You know, it's like you murder somebody and you left the gun there with your fingerprints on it. It's like you're just saying, please arrest me, cops. I totally did it. But anyway, okay. So you had that. There were a lot of holding for these Green Bay Packer wide receivers' lives, and they couldn't do it. They were not up to the task. This secondary was bad. The line couldn't even pressure him that much. Here's how bad it got. The only times they sacked Aaron Rodgers was not with defensive linemen, but actually with cornerbacks when they blitzed. And blitzing only worked about twice on him. It's bad. It's really bad, Bill, because I swear, I can't think this Dallas defense, this was what I was expecting this whole year. It took to the playoffs, but it happened.
I mean,
this is why I said that Dallas was not going to make the playoffs. They're going to go 5-11 because of this. This is what I was thinking they were going to play all year. But sure, it didn't happen all year. But you know what? You beat bad teams all year, like the Browns and the 49ers. You're like, oh yeah, look at our record. We're so impressive. Sure, a win's a win, but the most impressive team they beat all year was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because the Packers were not how they were now. If you played them how you were now in Lambeau, that would have been lopsided.
And here's the other issue with Dallas is that their offense basically masked their defense again.
That's how it's always been, Bill. Jerry Jones thinks he's so clever by drafting offensive players. Like, oh, I don't need a defense. I just need a really high-octane offense that can't be stopped. It will be stopped at some point. You know, just like the Denver Broncos when they played Seattle. Because then, what happened then, Bill? What happened in that game?
They got absolutely massacred.
Yeah, and we're not in the era of, like, the Peyton Manning versus the Chicago Bears, versus the Chicago Bears 10 years ago, where you had nothing but an offense and still won. We're past that era, because every team now is trying to have a good, powerful defense that can beat you up. That's what era we're transitioning into. And that's why the Seahawks won, because they were ahead of the curve. That's why Denver won last year, and that's why the Patriots won. You need a defense if you want to win. That's why I don't think the Falcons will win the Falcons or the Packers will win the Super Bowl this year, because the Patriots have a good defense.
And if you look at the NFC side, you know, every team had issues. Detroit had the issue of playing only a half of football. Their defense was garbage. Seattle had the issue of having no offense.
Yep, and they lost Earl Thomas.
Yeah. I mean, and if you look at Dallas, their biggest issue was their secondary, and it got exposed.
And I wanted to... No, finish what you're saying.
And the issue with Green Bay, which Dallas exposed, was that their secondary stinks as well. I mean, really, overall, this game really highlighted the massive issues on both teams. And both teams have a defensive issue, and
they don't intend to fix it.
If you look at Green Bay's corners throughout the game, Dez Bryant is killing them all over the field.
It's amazing why he didn't just throw it to Dez every time.
Dez Bryant was literally killing the Green Bay Packers.
There are two
up and down the field.
There's one thing I want to make a note of. Look, I don't know if you remember you know how every Sunday night football game they added it this year when they say like, oh, let's take a look at the starting offense. And then the players, they say their names, where they're from, and at the bottom, you see the Pro Football Focus rank. Here's the thing. Morris Claiborne was ranked number 6. Even though he only played half a season, ranked number 6. Brandon Carr, ranked number 14. And you say, oh, that's a good defense. Look at those rankings from Pro Football Focus. You know what the problem with that is? Again, first off, they were playing bad teams. And when they went up against good wide receivers like Odell Beckham, then they lost both of them. Guess why? Because in both those games, Odell Beckham made one good play that turned out to be the deciding factor in the whole thing. Because aside from that, they look like, oh, just one little bad blemish on their record. That's why they're so good. Don't trust those rankings. They look good, sure. Sometimes they are very well deserving. But when a team is masking that defense because they only need to play about 10 minutes of football, of course they're going to look good. This defense was ranked very high, and it was entirely misleading. It was not true. I've said it before, I say it again, the secondary was the biggest problem. I think the defensive line could have taken you up to a certain point, but it wasn't the worst in the world. I think there are worser out there, like Cleveland's, for example. That one is garbage, can't hit the quarterback at all, but at least the defensive line has enough talent. You have Tyron Crawford and you have DeMarcus Lawrence. That's passable. That's good. On the linebacker core, you just have Sean Lee, but, he's getting older. And on the secondary, you just have Morris Claiborne, who even now, he looked bad. He looked like a rookie who did not know what to do, that he could not keep up. He's probably going to work on speed in his training off season, but what, Bill?
The other issue that I want to just sort of point out with Dallas's defense is they were blitzing Aaron Rodgers.
You don't do that. You don't do that to him or Tom Brady.
Ever blitz Aaron Rodgers. You never do it. You leave people in coverage. The way that you get him into sacks and stuff like that.
There's only one defense from recent years I could see maybe do that and get away with it, and that was Denver's. Remember when they played Denver last season? They made them look like a joke. They were blitzing Rodgers, and he did not know what to do. But you know why? Because that was a borderline historic level defense. So unless you are a legendary defense who has talent all across the board, like there is not one you could argue is a weak spot, don't even try it. Don't even try it.
The example of the Houston Texans not blitzing Tom Brady in the other playoff game comes to mind. They weren't blitzing him because he'll kill you. Just don't do it. And Dallas was blitzing Green Bay.
The only time I saw the Texans blitz the Patriots was just a one-man extra. Like a linebacker that would normally drop to coverage just went in there. And it worked a couple of times. But that's because they made it subtle enough to make it look like, it looks like he's going to drop into coverage, and then everyone else played tight man-to-man long enough for that guy or somebody else in that line to get an opening and sack Brady. Because that was not Brady's best game, by the way. He threw 2 interceptions in that game, one of which was a tip pass, but, still. The Texans' defense was a good defense. I won't dismiss that. That's why it was so good. And Clowney is a monster. But Dallas doesn't have any of that. They don't have nothing that just screams, I need to be double covered. I am a force to be reckoned with. Now, the last thing I'm going to shit on Dallas for on this was not on defense, but on the coaching. I was afraid of this. You remember when they were driving on the field one last time, they spiked the ball with 48 seconds, and then they gave Aaron Rodgers the ball with 35 seconds and 2 timeouts left. And at that moment, my grandpa and I said, they're stupid. They just gave Aaron Rodgers the win. And sure enough, they did. First off, why did you spike the ball? You essentially eliminated one extra shot, to get a first down or into the end zone. I understand time was a concern, but you had a timeout. And second, you don't want to give Aaron Rodgers that time. If you gave him 15 seconds, there's no way he'll make it unless he did 2 Hail Marys in a row like he did in the Cardinals playoff game last year.
Right.
Sure, he has 2 timeouts, but how far, unless he throws more than 20 yards per throw, he is not getting anywhere near that end zone.
I mean, and the other thing that does is you kick to send the game into overtime where you can win the game in overtime.
Yes.
Because the best that they could do is score a touchdown.
The best
with
they could have
5
done.
seconds left and win the game.
The best thing they could have done was force the Packers to take timeouts at the end of their plays while they were still on the field, because like, oh shit, if I don't we don't want to chance it in overtime, because what if they get the ball first? It could be another Arizona Cardinals type of scenario where Larry Fitzgerald, or I bet in this case it would have been Dez Bryant, literally runs through the field all by himself and wins the game for him. You don't want that. But no, because of that spike, it eliminated a chance, and because of that, it gave the Packers all the time they needed to win. If you let the clock burn out, you would have won, maybe. I don't know. But at the very least, you would have given Aaron Rodgers a little less time, and that little less time might have very well have made the difference. Now, for all the shit I'm giving them, because I know one of my friends who was arguing with me about this, I am not hammering the offense at all. I think the offense is perfect. For the next 2 or 3 years, don't even think about adding any offensive pieces unless it's later in the draft and it's for the sake of depth. You don't need a star wide receiver. You don't need a star tight end. You don't need any of that. What you need is defense, defense, defense. Because here's the thing. I'm going to say this right now. Dallas will make a Super Bowl appearance in the next few years. The next 3 to 4 years, they will make at least one Super Bowl appearance. Whether they win or not, I'm not going to say. This offense is only going to get better from here, and that's good. But without a good defense, if they run into a team like say a Texans type of defense, or a Broncos defense, or even the Chiefs defense, because I can't trust the Chiefs because they're so inconsistent. But a point is, you run into a good defense like that, they're going to stuff you. The Giants were the proof of that. The Giants were your kryptonite all season, and guess what? You're probably going to play against teams like that because you had an easy schedule now, but look what you have next year. You got to play Atlanta, you got to play Seattle, and you got to play Green Bay again. If you're truly a Super Bowl contender like you say you are, you will beat at least 2 of those teams, maybe just one. At least beat one. If you can beat at least 1 or 2, then you are definitely right to call yourself Super Bowl contenders, because you should not call yourself the best unless you can beat the other sides of the best in your conference. And I'm not saying Dallas can't do that. I believe they can. I know they can beat Atlanta. I know they can beat Green Bay. And I think they can beat Seattle. But it's just a matter of you need to have this defense fix itself and get better. So with all that shit out of the way, I'm going to say that's probably the best thing I could tell Dallas and their fans. Despite them like, oh, you like 4 teams. You have no right to call yourself a fan. You just only like the team that's winning. No, I like a team that interests me, that suits what I like. And honestly, if people doubt if I'm a fan or not, what I usually like to do is I call this the 11 player test. If you're a fan of a team, you will name 11 players regardless of position. They'll say like, oh, quarterbacks don't count. No, star players don't count, because I don't know if you can too, but I could name at least 13 players on each of the 4 teams. I won't do it here, Bill. I'm not going to waste your time on that, but I'm just saying, if you want to really question somebody, have them better in person than on the internet, because I could just look it up if I want, or that's what the doubters will say. No, you just looked up the entire roster and picked up random names on there. But if you're don't tell me how to be a fan unless you are the first fan of anything. Don't ever tell me how to be a fan. I'll like as many teams as I want in the case of football, because I love the sport of football. I think it's so entertaining for me, because I love basketball and I like baseball, sure. But you know what? I think there's something special about football that makes it all the more entertaining that the other 2 sports don't have. And for the Patriots, I think Tom Brady's the GOAT. The Texans, J.J. Watt, and that defense, it enamors me. The Dallas Cowboys, they were the first team I grew up with, and that's why I support them. And the Lions, I want them to be that underdog team that everybody doubted and everybody was against, to make that one run and make history and win their first Super Bowl. That's why I like these 4 teams. They each have something in them that I enjoy so much that I can't ignore it. And plus, if you're going to call yourself a true fan, why are you doubting the Cowboys? Why are you saying, in this case with the Cowboys, why are you saying anything negative about them? Oh, this defense lost us the game, guys. What the fuck? Oh, if you're a true fan like you say you are, you would not blame them. You would be blaming the refs. You would be blaming things outside of your control, like always. you would be blaming them. You wouldn't blame a single thing on the Cowboys. You wouldn't blame Jason Garrett's questionable spike the ball call. You would not question the Dallas defense's horrendous performance. You would be blaming the Packers. You would be blaming Aaron Rodgers for being so good this game. And you would be blaming the refs as usual. And that's because the refs did you a solid and did not call at least 2 or 3 defensive holdings. So get the fuck over yourself, Cowboys fans. For those that have been true to the Cowboys for a while and gone through the ugly 2000s, you have every right to be disappointed. But you know what? There's always another year, and this team already showed plenty of promise. But now you have a chance to make a true name for yourself by beating the contenders in your divisions. You're going to be playing the Seattles, the Packers, and the Falcons this year. You want to prove your worth, you beat them. That's all I got to say on that, Bill, because honestly, in the draft, I think you and I already said what they need for next season. Defense, secondary, all the way. Cornerbacks, safety, you name it. Those players I think they heavily need in the draft. Do you agree?
Definitely agree. I definitely agree. They need.
Oh yeah, you see, Bill, this shit gets my blood boiling because these fans are so stupid at times. They say a lot of stupid things, and like, oh, how dare you criticize them? And it's like, but we beat the Packers the first time. Well, guess what? The Packers at the beginning of the year when you played them, they were a bad team, but now they are a much better team because they figured shit out. And if your defense figured shit out earlier in the year, and now they just dropped the ball. It's all on this defense here.
And the other thing is, past success doesn't guarantee future success.
Oh, yeah. And because the playoffs, it's an entirely different thing. All the coaches that say that, they're right. Because, look, the Steelers, I did not expect them to do it. They didn't look like they'd go past the divisional round. But they did it. I mean, they literally kicked their way in there, but they did it. Because it's a whole different game. Every team plays like it's their last. Every game is your Super Bowl because if you don't win, you're done. You're done for the wrong reasons. You're not just going home. You're going home with shit. You're not taking a trophy with you. And you don't want to go home until you have a trophy in your hands. That's how you play playoffs here. And the last thing, and fans, like, there's a Lions fan who was glad the Cowboys lost, even though he's like, yeah, I'm glad Aaron Rodgers beat the Cowboys. I hate the Cowboys. And you're like, in your bio, it says, fuck Aaron Rodgers in all caps. I'm shocked you do that. I'm not telling you how to be a fan here, because then I'd be a hypocrite, but isn't it kind of funny how, despite how you hate Aaron Rodgers, you're supporting him and you're telling you wanted to beat the Cowboys because the Cowboys beat you, even though the Packers have always beaten you every year. You lose to them at least once a year, maybe you'll beat them once, and that's about if you're lucky. But you'll say, oh, they only lost because the refs gave them a favor. What about every other time? These 2 games, for example. Bill, do you think that the Lions deserve to win those 2 games that they lost to the Packers?
One of them, they came out soft and then came back.
Yeah,
so they had a chance.
But I don't think they did because, remember, they only play half a game. If they played a full game, sure, I could say they should have won that, but they didn't.
But overall,
And here's the other thing.
Overall, any team has any chance to win on any day. That's my philosophy.
Yeah, but when you only play half a game, it's really hard to win.
Exactly.
But, like, here's the thing. For all that shit he's saying, you could have kept the Packers out of the postseason by beating them at least once. If you beat them once, you would have won the division. And they probably would have been knocked out of the playoff race as well if they lost just one game. But they didn't, because you let them kick your ass in the second half of the second encounter, and the first time you didn't play anything in the first half. It's just, the thing is, it's funny when non-playoff teams, they laugh at other playoff teams for winning. It's like, oh yeah, you're not successful. Guess what? You're kind of not either. I'm sorry, Bill, for shitting on your Lions team, but the fans are bad for getting mad at Dallas. You said it earlier, it was like bad blood between you, and yeah, that's true, but come on. Unless you made the playoffs too, you're not exactly in the best position to make fun of them. Like, another Vikings team, a Vikings fan that I saw was making fun of the Cowboys, but I'm like, hey, didn't you lose to the Cowboys in your own stadium when you're supposedly unbeatable? And didn't you lose to the Packers when you were supposedly unbeatable?
I'll just put it this way, and it's bad blood with Detroit against Dallas.
It's bad blood with everybody.
But but think of it this way: Detroit fans are now rooting for Atlanta to demolish Green Bay because I know I am.
I'm going for Atlanta too, but yeah, Bill. The last takeaways for this week, Bill. Before we get to the picks, I can't believe Pittsburgh literally kicked themselves into the AFC title game. Because
I mean,
what, Bill? No, I'll let you say it.
It seemed like it was gonna go that way last night. It didn't. It had sort of that feel to it.
But it's crazy how, despite that, the Chiefs were getting touchdowns. They should have won this, which is confusing. How do a team that made touchdowns could not keep up with the team that just put 3 every time?
I mean, that's always been their issue. Kansas City is their offense.
Yeah, they're an inconsistent team. This is what I said. If they lost, it's because they're inconsistent. They could beat it. I think they could maybe beat the Patriots on a really good day, but because they're inconsistent, because they can just drop a game to a bad team like the Titans or something, or the Texans, I would also say, because that was also a bad game by Osweiler in week 2, but somehow they do it. But I don't know. I mean, I can't say the Chiefs will make it again. I think they'll make the playoffs for sure, but I just don't know if they'll actually get farther than the title game. I don't think they'll make a Super Bowl appearance with that inconsistency. And their offense looks like it has all the pieces needed to make that run. I just don't know. But anyway, the other game, Bill, the Falcons. People are like, oh, Aaron Rodgers, the MVP, he's so much better than everybody because he said run the table. But you know what? I think Matt Ryan deserves it so much more. Look at that, 36-20, a comfortable win over the Seahawks, who wronged you because the refs pretty much gave Seattle that win. But no, Seattle did not have any chance in this one. I don't think they stood a chance at all. I didn't think it'd be this big of a blowout, but I mean, it says 36-20, but really, the Seahawks scored a couple touchdowns in garbage time.
They got absolutely demolished.
Yep, and no ref in the world could save them. No ref could say, oh, look, Julio Jones made pass interference on Richard Sherman instead of the other way around. But you know what? Fine. It's fine, because the Falcons, sure, I don't think the Falcons might win the Super Bowl if they play the Patriots. Maybe if they play the Steelers, they can, but I can't see them beating the Patriots. But you know what? I think this was Matt Ryan's year to just... I remember, like, last year, everyone's calling Matt Ryan, like, he's a bust, he's not a good quarterback, they don't have anything, they're not a good team at all. But then, now, it's like, he had a chip on his shoulder. We didn't even think about it. That's how disrespectful it was to him. We didn't realize he had the biggest chip on his shoulder as a QB because nobody believed him, everybody doubted him, and now look at this. He put up one of the best years as a quarterback. Really good for him, but this offense is too good, and that's why I think, Bill, are you ready for the picks?
Indeed. All right, here we go. The NFC title game. The Green Bay Packers at the Atlanta Falcons.
A+ transition by me, not really. The Falcons, I think this is Matt Ryan's year to stick it, and he narrowly beat the Packers last time. I think this time I'm going to finally get... I'm not going to get 100 points on this, but I think I'm going to get a 51-44 type of game. I think we're going to get that with no Hail Mary working this time because Julio Jones is going to be added on that coverage, and he's going to take the ball away from Aaron Rodgers. That's right, Julio Jones is going to have his first career interception as the Falcons win a very fun offensive game and make their trip to the Super Bowl.
I have the Atlanta Falcons blowing out the Green Bay Packers.
If that happens, Bill, I really want it to happen. I'm not saying anything yet. I don't want to jinx it.
Hey, I want to see it. I want to see the Atlanta Falcons absolutely steamroll the Green Bay Packers for their trip to the Super Bowl.
I want to see it too, Bill, but I'm just not saying anything.
So here we go, the AFC title game. The Pittsburgh Steelers at the New England Patriots.
Bill, before we move to the pick, breaking news. the Texans have actually made a firing. They have fired the offensive coordinator, George Godsey. Wow, I wonder who they're going to get. I don't know who they'll get, but that's just all I'm going to say. Anyway, that's all. I just wanted to point that out before you get on to the next one. So anyway, to the pick, I'm going to go with the Patriots. Tom Coughlin's gonna say, or Mike Tomlin, excuse me, is gonna say that the Steelers should have won this because the Patriots are cheaters. Roger Goodell's gonna find a way to investigate this and make a new type of gate. I'm not sure what it'll be called. I can't make that prediction. I'm not psychic. But that's what I'm gonna see because the Patriots are going to steamroll the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it'll be a 40-24 type of game. This defense for Pittsburgh is going to be a lot not as good as the Texans. That's why Tom Brady can comfortably get into the Super Bowl for his 5th ring.
Agree. I've got the New England Patriots winning. I think it's going to be a comfortable lead. They're the number 1 scoring defense, and Pittsburgh had trouble against Kansas City's defense. And they were one of the top defenses as well.
Yep, I agree. But anyway, so we are both having a Atlanta versus New England Super Bowl. I feel this is good. Another NFC South team is going to make the Super Bowl, which is surprising for being one of the weakest divisions. Yeah, I'm gonna enjoy this week. Hopefully, both games look promising. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers Patriots games at a best case scenario can turn into a shootout. Worst case, it's a monster it's gonna be a monster blowout by the Patriots. Same thing for the Falcons, but I think that one's more likely to be the shootout game. I hope you're right, Bill. I really hope you're right because I can't stand Aaron Rodgers and all that stuff. But anyway, do you have anything else to add to this, Bill?
I'm good.
All right then, we will see you guys when both teams have been decided and we're going to be on to Pro Bowl weekend.